I cause people to allow me to do their thinking for them because they're too lazy and too indifferent to think for themselves. I have no physical body. I'd be handicapped by such an encumbrance as those in which you earthbound creatures live. I consist of negative energy, and I live in the minds of people who fear me. I also occupy half of every atom of physical matter and every unit of mental and physical energy. One of my cleverest devices for mind control is fear. I plant the seed of fear in the minds of people, and these seeds germinate and grow through use. I control the space they occupy. The 6 most effective fears are the fear of poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death. The first and the last, poverty and death, at one time or another during life, I tighten my grip on all people through one or both of these. I plant these fears in the minds of people so deftly that they believe them to be their own creation. All forms of fear extend the space I occupy in the human mind. I control part of the brain space of every human being. The amount of space I occupy in each individual's mind depends on how little and what sort of thinking that person does. As I've told you, I cannot entirely control any person who thinks. My greatest weapon over human beings consists of 2 secret principles by which I gain control of their minds. I'll speak first of the principle of habit, through which I silently enter the minds of people. By operating through this principle, I establish the habit of drifting. When a person begins to drift on any subject, he's headed straight toward the gates of what you earthbound call hell. I can best define the word drift by saying that people who think for themselves never drift, while those who do little or no thinking for themselves are drifters. A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind. He'd rather have me occupy his mind and do his thinking than go to the trouble of thinking for himself. A drifter is one who accepts whatever life throws in his way, without making a protest or putting up a fight. He doesn't know what he wants from life and spends all of his time getting just that. A drifter has lots of opinions, but they're not his own. Most of them are supplied by me. A drifter is one who's too lazy mentally to use his own brain. That's the reason I can take control of people's thinking and plant my own ideas in their minds. My control over the mind of a human being is obtained while the person is young. Sometimes I lay the foundation for my control of a mind before the owner of it is born, by manipulating the minds of that person's parents. Sometimes I go further back than this and prepare people for my control through what you earthbound call physical heredity. After people are born, I make use of what you earthbound call environment as a means of controlling them. This is where the principle of habit enters. The mind is nothing more than the sum total of one's habits. One by one, I enter the mind and establish habits, which lead finally to my absolute domination of the mind. Children grow up, but they don't always learn to think for themselves. Once I capture the mind of a child through fear, I weaken that child's ability to reason and to think for himself, and that weakness goes with the child all through life. The first thing you'll notice about a drifter is his total lack of major purpose in life. He'll be conspicuous by his lack of self-knowledge. He'll never accomplish anything requiring thought and effort. He'll have little or no imagination. He'll lack enthusiasm and initiative to begin anything he's not forced to undertake, and he'll plainly express his weakness by taking the line of least resistance whenever he can do so. He'll be ill-tempered and lacking in control of his emotions. His personality will be without magnetism, and it will not attract other people. He'll have opinions on everything, but accurate knowledge of nothing. He'll make the same mistake over and over again, never profiting by failure. He'll be narrow-minded and intolerant on all subjects, ready to crucify those who may disagree with him. He will expect everything of others, but be willing to give little or nothing in return. He may begin many things, but he'll complete nothing. He will never reach decisions on anything if he can avoid it. And if he's forced to decide, he'll reverse himself at the first opportunity. He'll eat too much and exercise too little. He'll criticize others who are succeeding in their chosen calling. The first sign of a non-drifter is this: he's always engaged in doing something definite, through some well-organized plan which is definite. He has a major goal in life toward which he's always working, and many minor goals, all of which lead toward his central scheme. The tone of his voice, the quickness of his step, the sparkle in his eyes, the quickness of his decisions clearly mark him as a person who knows exactly what he wants and is determined to get it, no matter how long it may take or what price he must pay. If you ask him questions, he gives you direct answers and never falls back on evasions or resorts to subterfuge. He extends many favors to others, but accepts favors sparingly or not at all. If he doesn't know the answers, he'll say so frankly. He never blames others for his mistakes, no matter if they deserve the blame. He used to be known as a go-getter, but in modern times he's being called a go-giver. You'll find him running the biggest business in town, living on the best street, driving the best automobile, and making his presence felt wherever he happens to be. He's an inspiration to all who come into contact with his mind. The major distinguishing feature of the non-drifter is this: he has a mind of his own and uses it for all purposes. Protection against drifting lies within easy reach of every human being who has a normal body and a sound mind. The self-defense can be applied through these simple methods. Do your own thinking on all occasions. The fact that human beings are given complete control over nothing save the power to think their own thoughts is laden with significance. Decide definitely what you want from life. Then, create a plan for attaining it, and be willing to sacrifice everything else if necessary rather than accept permanent defeat. Analyze temporary defeat, no matter of what nature or cause, and extract from it the seed of an equivalent advantage. Be willing to render useful service equivalent to the value of all material things you demand of life, and render the service first. Recognize that your brain is a receiving set that can be attuned to receive communications from the universal storehouse of infinite intelligence to help you transmute your desires into their physical equivalent. Recognize that your greatest asset is time, the only thing except the power of thought which you own outright, and the one thing that can be shaped into whatever material things you want. Budget your time so none of it is wasted. Recognize that life is a cruel taskmaster, and that either you master it or it masters you. There is no halfway or compromising point. Never accept from life anything you don't want. If that which you don't want is temporarily forced upon you, you can refuse in your own mind to accept it, and it will make way for the thing you do want. Lastly, remember that your dominating thoughts attract, through a definite law of nature, by the shortest and most convenient route, their physical counterpart. Be careful what your thoughts dwell upon.